2022 Wild Card Weekend Preview. That's our show today. I'd like to keep it short and sweet. I much prefer actually reviewing. It's fun to preview, but I enjoy actually going back and breaking the games down and analyzing them more than making predictions. But let's do it. I'm disappointed with the slate of games, the matchups we have. It's anything but super wild card weekend. It stinks. This is the third year we've had 7 teams in each conference make it to the playoffs. 14 out of 32 teams is too much. Don't even want to get started on how many teams, again, get into it in the NBA. I mean, that's really a joke in what they've done in Major League Baseball. And the more teams is not the better. I know it's all about money. I want quality games. That's why I say, well, I'm ready just to jump to the divisional round. Please just get to the divisional round. On average, what do we get? 1 good wild card team in each conference. Okay, I can live with 2, but 3, we've really watered it down. And what was a playoff team in the past meant something. What meant to be a divisional winner meant something. Now, I wish we'd go back to the old format, but we're never going back because it's all about the money. I wasn't wild about how they scheduled the games as far as where they put them on the schedule. Didn't like that either, and I'll get into that when we get looking at the specific games. And then it was disappointing that we've got divisional games. If you really have a great rivalry, it's one thing, but with 2 divisional games right away in the wild card, I don't like it. Seahawks 49ers, and then we've got Ravens Bengals. And one more thing before we get into the game. It was announced today that between the Bills and Chiefs, if they play a conference championship game or whenever they might play each other, it's going to be in Atlanta. Atlanta? It's so frustrating because, like many, I was looking forward to a potential championship game in Buffalo. Whether it be in Kansas City or Buffalo, you're going to get cold, you're going to get weather, it could possibly snow. This is what we want for January playoff football, and then you're moving this to Atlanta. I figured it was probably going to be indoors. I was hoping maybe if it had to be indoors, it would be Houston or Las Vegas. Could we at least get on grass? No, Atlanta. And then I was talking about it last week too, saying, how about Green Bay? Wouldn't that be something with the Packers possibly being eliminated? Could we have it in Green Bay? Could we have it somewhere outdoors? No. Green Bay, New England. I even heard the idea today of Cincinnati if the Bengals are eliminated. Hey, that's good. Or it could have been Cleveland. That was just a poor choice. You don't put outdoor teams indoors. And I'm very much against indoor Super Bowls, believe me. I have a problem when you have many great outdoor facilities that you can count on good weather for, whether that be Arizona. You could even say, well, San Francisco has been rainy this year, even though Santa Clara. But typically it's dry. If we still had San Diego, okay, but I'd say you have Arizona, or you have Tampa Bay, Miami. Could go with those. Indoors. If we can avoid indoor football as much as possible, that's the way to go. Because the game is not meant to be played indoors. I mean, baseball is not meant to be played indoors. Football is not meant to be played indoors. Basketball and hockey, yes. Even though the Winter Classic is very cool. I will say playing hockey outside is a treat. But now let's look at these games. First game is the 49ers hosting the Seahawks. And on paper, it's a mismatch. And I'm not going to dig into these games too much. Just going to give my thoughts, a little strategy, and then a winner and maybe a score if I feel like it. 49ers won both games and won both games convincingly in the regular season. They are the most well-rounded, talented team in the conference. Not only that, in the playoffs altogether. The Seahawks have had an excellent year, all considering. Pete Carroll, would you not say, to have this team at 9-8, and that's another thing I can do without the 17th game, but to have them in it at 9-8, just to even be around 500, is arguably his greatest coaching job. And I have great respect for Pete Carroll. I mean, sometimes I may get a little tired of the rah. But hey, I always say if I get to be 70 years old and I'm running around like Pete Carroll chewing gum and out there on the sidelines, I'd be thankful and I would be thrilled. Not expecting it. But he's had quite a career when you consider college and the NFL. And Russell Wilson looks really bad. Pete Carroll comes out of this looking really good, what he's done with Geno Smith. And you always know the defense will play well. He'll get the most out of what he has. They'll be prepared. I mean, it's hard for a team to beat another 3 times in one season, but again, there's a large talent disparity. The 49ers are getting really the whole team back, almost the whole team back for this. The one thing that's really going to keep this game closer, I'd pick the 49ers in a blowout if it wasn't for the weather, because there's going to be rain and wind throughout this game, and that helps the Seahawks. A wet game, a messy game, you have more turnovers, and they want to muck it up. The problem is the 49ers run the ball so well, and they are the more physical team. They are at home. You know, Brock Purdy in the story's been amazing. He's played so well. He's impressed all. It's true, but I have to be fair as a 49er fan saying, this is the best supporting cast in football, all the way from the running backs. You have the best left tackle. You have a top 3 tight end. You have excellent receivers. You could have everything you want, and a play caller who trusts you in Kyle Shanahan. That was my complaint about Jimmy Garoppolo. I was saying, wow, especially when they add Christian McCaffrey, I am tired of the excuses. He has a deeper, more talented supporting cast than Joe Montana or Steve Young ever had. This is a loaded, stacked team. He just needs to play a mistake-free game. I shouldn't say a mistake-free game. He needs to play a clean game and avoid the mistakes, and he's done that, and I trust that he won't turn the football over more than one time. And Kyle Shanahan's a conservative coach, and I think there will be a lot of running, there'll be short passing. it will keep the game closer. That also hurts the Seahawks, though, I think, on offense because they want to try and isolate Metcalf and they want to try and isolate Lockett in one-on-one matchups down the field. That's going to be much more difficult in the rain. I mean, who's going to run the ball better? I'm going to take the 49ers. And the Seahawks have had their trouble running the ball. I mean, the score was 21-13 up in Seattle a few weeks ago. It really wasn't that close of a game. I think 49ers will run the ball success. They've got too many playmakers for the Seahawks to deal with. The defense will cause problems. Another thing that does help the Seahawks, I think the pass rush of the 49ers will be slowed down somewhat with the wet field. I will take the 49ers. I think it will be a lower scoring game. So much depends on how heavy the rain is. I don't know what that's going to be like, but the forecast is for rain throughout the game with wind. I'll say 20-10. 20-10 49ers. They will advance. This is the second time they've played each other since being in the same division. You know, the 2013 championship game was one of the greatest championship games in a long time. And that was the Super Bowl that season, but this is not going to be anything like that. This is a Seahawks team that, again, I give Pete Carroll all the credit in the world for what he's done, but these two teams are not close in talent. The 49ers win it at home. I don't like where this game was put, though, on the schedule. The first game. I mean, believe me, I like Saturday afternoon playoff games. But 49ers not in one of the more prime time spots. That surprises me because we always talk about, oh, you know what's the first wild card game? Oh, the sleepy game in Houston. Remember the two consecutive back-to-back Texans-Bengals? Oh. But once the Packers didn't make it in, I was just saying, well, at least I hope it's not going to be the Monday night game. And that Packers, I got to say something about that Packers-Lions game. Even though the Packers were ahead in the fourth quarter, I was sitting there just saying, as long as the Lions hang in there and keep it close, they will win the game, and they did. Wow. It was like watching the 49ers-Packers game last year in the divisional round in ways again. Okay, moving on to the evening game. And this is what I don't understand. The Jaguars-Chargers, that's the better game? I don't know. This one could go either way. Jaguars have been very hot, but the Chargers are getting healthier. They got Joey Bosa back. I like the Chargers close. I'll say 28-24 Chargers. I'll go with the better quarterback in Justin Herbert, even though Trevor Lawrence has improved greatly in year two and the Jaguars are hot. They're playing at home. Jacksonville's not a home field advantage. Let's just say that. But I don't feel great about this. I could see the Jaguars certainly pulling it out. Do feel the Chargers are the better team, but there's not a big gap between the two rosters. I do think, though, the Jaguars are coached better. That's something you have to take into consideration. But I like Herbert in this. And it's the first playoff game for both of these quarterbacks, Herbert and Lawrence. And we'd expect these two to be seeing a lot of each other in the playoffs for years to come. And they're both 6'6" quarterbacks. That's another interesting fact. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because, to be frank, these teams aren't going to the Super Bowl. They're not. I don't see them even making the championship game, even if things go well. But odd how you'd have the East Coast game in the evening, you have the West Coast game in the afternoon. Sunday morning, and the Bills got to be saying the same thing. You know, we're the best team in, outside of the Chiefs this weekend, and we're playing the Sunday morning game. They didn't get the afternoon or the evening game on Sunday. Bills and Dolphins. Oh yeah, excuse me. 3. I failed to mention that. 3 divisional games. 49ers Seahawks, Bills Dolphins, and Ravens Bengals. I like to see some different matchups. It's okay once in a while. Again, if it's a good rivalry, fine. But I like to see some different matchups. And we learned Tua's not going to play. And the Dolphins have not played well for a while. This is not the Dolphins team from the first half of the season. The Bills should crush them. They're at home. They believe that they're the best team in the AFC. And if they're the best or the second best team against a backup quarterback, Bills should win, and Bills should win big. They should put the Dolphins away by halftime. I expect some big plays from Josh Allen and the offense. The defense of the Bills, yeah, you have to worry about the speed, but can the Dolphins even take advantage with it? But one thing I have to say is I love morning games in Buffalo. Morning games are Buffalo. There's certain stadiums that play best in the morning. And I'm saying that from a West Coast perspective. But it's Buffalo, Kansas City, and Green Bay. Oh, I would always rather have those in the morning, or it would be a 1 o'clock kick in Buffalo, and then Kansas City and Green Bay, 12 or 12 o'clock kick. But the Bills should have no trouble. If they're as good as they ought to be. And we'll see how much they miss Von Miller. I don't think it'll matter this week, but we'll see how much they miss Von Miller against better competition. The afternoon game, Giants and Vikings. Again, here's another one I have a problem with. Minnesota looks great, and that stadium is built for early games, not later games, because the way the sunlight and the lighting comes in, the actual natural lighting comes into the stadium. We just had this on Christmas Day. It was the whiteout in Minnesota. I don't imagine they're going to do this again. And that's another thing. We've had a lot of these games even recently, too. Very, very recently. The Vikings got out and escaped with a win against the Giants. The Giants really challenged them. I don't believe in the Vikings. I think they're going to have a hard time in this one. And a lot of experts have been picking the Giants to win. This is another one I wouldn't want to put money on. I just don't know about Kirk Cousins. The Vikings defense has its problems. I almost feel the team that plays better defense will win. You got 2 great running backs, Cook and Barkley. I think the 2 teams that run the best and who the team that runs the best, and then the team that actually offers some resistance against the opponent's offense will win. I'll take the Vikings by 3. 30-27 Vikings. But I'm not confident in that game. The evening game, I'm so disinterested in this. Without Lamar Jackson, Ravens at Bengals. Even if they had Lamar Jackson in, the Bengals are going to win this game. Joe Burrow is one of the top quarterbacks in the league now. The Bengals should win this by 10. I mean, you know, John Harbaugh will have his teams prepared. They're coached well. They have a talented team. There's just too big of a difference between Burrow at home and then Huntley. And Huntley's good. I mean, he's a good backup. The Bengals have too much on offense, and I don't see the Ravens keeping up. They'll do what they can to keep it close. I'll say 24-14 Bengals. And that's the NBC game. I feel like that's the wasted game because my favorite crew is the NBC crew with Tirico and Collinsworth. And let me just say as a side note, I think it's amazing that Melissa Stark, after all these years, got another shot at being on the sidelines. She's been fine. I'm more of a Michelle Tafoya guy myself, but I think NBC top to bottom does the best job, from being in the studio to the booth and just the overall presentation. And finally, the last game. And to me, this is the only interesting game of the weekend. We have 6 games. You know, I'm invested in the 49ers and Seahawks, being a 49er fan. But to be honest, and stepping back and saying, well, if I was just a casual observer, or if I had no interest in the game, is this a good game? Not really. And I don't even consider the 49ers and Seahawks rivals. I don't. That's another discussion for another day. But Cowboys going to the Buccaneers, and you're probably going to have the Cowboys wearing blue. Please wear gray or silver pants. And the Buccaneers wearing white. We won't get into the uniforms too much. We'll look at that in a separate show. The Buccaneers, I assume they'll be wearing white on pewter. Yet another game that could go either way. It just tells me that a lot of the teams that are in here are not very good. I mean, the divisional winners are not that great. The Cowboys have not been good. I mean, Dak Prescott leads the NFL in interceptions. Their defense has really regressed. The Buccaneers are a sub 500 team. And I have such a problem with this. If you are sub 500, as far as I'm concerned, you're out of the playoffs. If you have got to be over 500, I know it depends if you have teams. Well, you should have teams that are over 500, but that's another big issue I have with this new format. Is you have more teams that are just, they're unworthy. They're not, they get in because you got to put 7 teams in there, but the Buccaneers have no business being a playoff team. So why am I saying this game could be close and it could go either way? Is because the Cowboys melt under pressure, and there is more pressure in this game on the Cowboys, even though they're the road team. They had the better record as a wild card than divisional winning Buccaneers, and the Buccaneers are just a shadow of what they were. And not of the Super Bowl year, but last year. Tom Brady obviously can still play. They have some good players on both sides of the ball, but they're thin. They're not very good in the trenches. And they're a team that can get out physical. But, you know, the Cowboys, again, have really fallen off on defense. Micah Parsons started off so well, and the year he had last year was one for the ages for a rookie. That he's not been very effective in the second half, and I think the injuries have really got to him. I don't believe in Dak Prescott. Getting the offense, I do not believe in Dak Prescott. He's a slightly above average quarterback. He has some moments. He can get hot. But he's not the kind of quarterback that's going to consistently carry his team. He's not. Ezekiel Elliott is not what he used to be. Pollard is their lead running back now. And what's going to be the Cowboys' strategy? I think they got to have a balanced attack, and I think they got to go in there and really be dedicated to the run, and they should be able to run on the Buccaneers. And with the Buccaneers, they don't even care if they can run the ball or not. Tom Brady, if he needs to, he'll throw the ball 60 times. And he could certainly win this football game. And I repeat, the pressure is on the Cowboys, and I want to say this for the record. For those who don't pay attention, and for ESPN and NFL and everything else, the Cowboys have not won. The Cowboys have not advanced past the divisional round since 1995. They won the Super Bowl in 1995. They have not reached a conference title or championship game since 1995. This is the 2022 season. Why are we talking about them so much? More than half the teams in the league, from just a success, from just the perspective of success, how we should measure success, are more important than the Cowboys and have been more relevant than the Cowboys. Who's going to win this game? The team that turns the ball over less. And I think in this case, it's most likely, I got to say, I think the Buccaneers and Tom Brady are less likely to give away the ball. Could the Cowboys surprise us? Yes, they could surprise us. What are some other factors? Well, I wonder, though, about the Buccaneers is, can they get pressure on Dak Prescott without Shaq Barrett being there? I seriously wonder about that. And I think this could be a very high-scoring game. I think it could be in the 30s. I would love to see the Cowboys lose. But again, if you have to put me up against the wall, pin me up against the wall and say, pick a team, I'll go with the Cowboys 34-31. They haven't been impressive, but this is a bad Buccaneers team. And I know Tom Brady's on the other side of the field. I do not believe in the Cowboys as being a serious contender or getting the championship or Super Bowl this year, but they should beat the Buccaneers. But I don't put it past Tom Brady that he could pull this off. If it comes down to a final drive at the end of the game and Tom Brady has a chance to win it or get the Buccaneers into field goal range, I'm going to go with the Buccaneers. I mean, it might be the team who has the ball last wins the game. And I feel with the Buccaneers that Todd Bowles is a good defensive coordinator, but they certainly lost something, especially with just overall. If you ask me, Bruce Arians did not get enough credit for what he did, and they miss him in the head coach role. I think McCarthy's a good coach. I just don't know why he took the job in Dallas. If the Cowboys lose this game, I would think he would get fired. Well, I will take the Cowboys. So as a recap, 49ers, Chargers, Bills, Vikings, Cowboys. And last thing I'll say is I do actually like the Monday night game better. Having the 3 games on Saturday and then coming back with 3 games on Sunday was just too much. Spreading them out was a better decision. So let's see how these games go. I'll be far more interested in actually reviewing them instead of trying to pick these games and pick a winner. It'll get interesting once we get to the divisional round.